Hello, 7th through 8th grade. Please pardon my cold today. We are just going to have a short video, an important one though. I'm going to check in with you. At this point, you should be about a third of the way through your research paper. So I would expect you to have 3 to 5 paragraphs done at this point. If you start with point 1, which is where I recommend starting your writing, then you should be through point 1 and maybe part of point 2 at this point. I guess that's a lot of points. All right. But the topic I want to talk about today is something that you can use as you're writing. It's very important to know how to do this, and I've broken it down for you. So you remember the example I used a couple weeks ago for our research. I'm going to pinch out here. And we pretended we had research on video games and we were organizing it. And we broke it down into the mental, physical, and social benefits. And so I'm going to pretend now that I have a quotation that we might use under one of these points. And I'm going to refer to this nursing home VR where they got some exercise and it boosted their mood. Okay, so we're going to have a pretend quotation. So let me show you what I did here. This would be if I read an article. Of course, this is all fake, but let's pretend there's an article I came across in my research that was titled, "Gaming Comes to Nursing Homes" by Esther Hooligan. And on page 5 of the article, I really liked this quotation because I thought, ooh, this would be good for the point where I talk about, let's see. I'm going to cite this particular part under, excuse me, the physical benefits, okay? So I'm going to talk about the physical benefits, and I'm going to tell you after I show you all these options for using this information, which one is my favorite. So this is the original quotation I put down on a note card. And so this is how my note card would have looked. I would include the title of the article, the author, the page number, and then I just directly quoted. So this would be an excerpt from the article. I'm going to read it to you now. Dr. Gallagher, one of the managing doctors at Awesome Hopewell Nursing Home, encouraged the use of virtual reality for his patients who were room-bound. It gave them social interaction and a sense of adventure. They often played with their healthier peers who were playing in the gathering room. Some even managed to find a way to play with out-of-town family. Sometimes employees would step in and play with patients who did not have family or friends to connect with. All in all, these patients moved more and their moods improved. It gave them a reason to get out of bed, said Dr. Gallagher. So I prescribed it regularly, like medicine. Okay, so as you can see, this kind of article could actually fall under any one of these points. Excuse me, let me turn off my highlighter and let me go find our brainstorm again. Okay. Because notice there was some information about the social benefits, the physical benefits, and the mental benefits. So I could use the quotation as it is, but this would not fall under any one of these. It would fall under all 3 of these. So here's your first option. If I used it as a direct quotation, it would probably go somewhere in my intro or conclusion. So here's one option. Option 1 would be a direct quotation, and it would look something like this. If this were my paper, I would say, and I'm going to highlight this part in green so you know where I am. According to an article written by Esther Hooligan, notice you always need to, at the beginning of your quotation, you need to cite that it is a quotation and who it's by is the best way to do it. Dr. Gallagher, one of the managing doctors at the Awesome Hopewell Nursing Home, and notice it's a direct quote. I copied and pasted, but I want to point out that I did not change a single thing, except for the fact that now I'm using quotation marks here and here. So that means that the quotation of Dr. Gallagher's words have to use single quotation marks. Okay? So that's the only change that is allowable under the MLA formatting. The other thing that you need to notice is how we cite it in our paper. Now, this is exactly how you're supposed to do a quotation. However, if you use the author at the beginning, like I did, then actually you don't need to write the article, the author, again in your citation. But this is MLA citation. Okay, I'm going to try to, I'd like to see if I can get back in there. There we go. No, I just want to go right. There we go. All right. So actually, all you need is the page number. Notice there's no period after my quotation. The period goes outside of the parentheses. Okay, this is required. It is MLA format, and they are really specific. This is kind of like your bibliography. You have to do this part right. Now, if you do not have hooligan up here, you could just say, according to an article. You could refer to the magazine instead. You could say, according to an article in the Medical Examiner. Of course, this would be italicized because a magazine, excuse me, Medical Examiner. But maybe that's a really prestigious medical magazine, so you want to point out that's where you got it in your research. Of course, this would also be in your bibliography. According to an article in the Medical Examiner, Dr. Gard, and then you get to the end, and I'll tell you, sometimes it's hard to navigate on this iPad. So now we're going to adjust our citation at the end. There we go. So now here I would put in hooligan space 5. No need for a P, no need for a period or a comma. You do the last name of the author and the page number. And then the period goes outside the parentheses. No comma or period between the quotation mark and the citation. Okay? So that's one way to do it. I will say this. If you are new to research and you're nervous about how to use quotations and summaries, maybe this is your way of doing it, but I don't think this is the best way, because when you just blob research into your paper and you don't specifically apply it, it makes for an imprecise research paper that looks like you don't know how to write. So you trust everybody else's words and you depend so heavily on them. So you just cut and paste other people's words. So here's a better way. So you already know that I'm going to X option number 1, although it's acceptable and it is correct. Correct is very important. Option 2, a partial quotation. So if I were to use this, I would use this one under the point for exercise, okay? And so then I'm going to emphasize the movement aspect. So this would be a partially my words, and partial quotation, and it would look like this. Let me highlight this in another color so you can follow where I am. Okay. Option 2. Even nursing homes use video games to help improve the health and movement of their patients. According to Dr. Gallagher, it gave them a reason to get out of bed. So I prescribed it regularly, like medicine. Okay, so notice how I introduce the quote. I say, according to Dr. Gallagher. I use regular quotation marks because I'm not quoting a quote. I'm just extracting that one quote. And then I leave out, if you want to look at my original article, notice over here when they quoted him, it gave him a reason to get out of bed, said Dr. Gallagher. So I prescribed it regularly. I did it differently. So when you break a part out of the inside of a quote, you have an ellipses. And the proper way to do an ellipses in MLA format is not the way your computer wants to do an ellipses. Your computer wants to just do it with one button and squish them all together. The proper way to do it is to do space, period, space, period, space. Let's see if I get it right. space, period, space, period, space, period, space. So in other words, space, period, space, period, space, period, space. Okay. And of course we had some punctuation here. So comma, and then in ellipses. So this would be another way to do it. Again, notice how we cited it at the end. It came from Hooligan 5. So if I'm reading your research and I think, I want to look this article up. This sounds so interesting. I would go to the back of your paper, your research paper, and I'd look at your bibliography or your works cited page, whichever one we decide to call it, although we'll probably do works cited. And I would look in your alphabetical list of resources and I would find the H's and Hooligan, and I would now have all the information I need to go look up this article for myself. Maybe I'm doing research and I am reading your research paper on this topic, and that gives me a clue as to where to go find this article. Okay, so the third option would be a straight summary. Now in this one, I use it as an example of moods. Notice I cite improving moods. So I would put it under the mood topic. This one doesn't use any quotations, but it also doesn't plagiarize. So I don't use any phrases or words. I just summarize it in my own words. So our third option right here. Even nursing homes now use video games as a way of improving moods and health in their patients. Esther Hooligan cites an example in her fascinating article, Gaming Comes to Nursing Homes. Look at this. I found a mistake in I would put comma, where she explains how one doctor, Dr. Gallagher, even prescribes video games to his patients as part of their normal protocol. She gives several more examples of how doctors use this innovative method across the country. And I forgot a period. Okay, so 2 things to note. See how we, let me use a highlighter instead. Now, when we have Hooligan at the beginning of our summary, which if you're doing a summary, you need to cite when you're talking about somebody else's work. So it doesn't just look like you're still using your own information. So this shows the beginning of the information we're borrowing, and it shows the end, okay? And so we mention Hooligan, we talk about the name of her article, we kind of summarize it, and then we put at the end the page number we found this on. And notice there's no quotation marks necessary, and we also don't need to put the author's last name here because we already have the author's last name. So it's similar to the first one over here where we would drop that. So this should be crossed out because we cite her at the beginning. All right. Oh, no, we decided to use the magazine name instead, right? So we would have to have it there. Okay. So I hope this is helpful. When you have a really good article like this that can go under several categories, if you use option 2 or option 3, you can actually use it as support for all 3 of your points. But if you use it as a direct quote and you just cut and paste it into your paper, then you can really only use it in one spot. You can't use the same quote over and over again. You would emphasize under the point about how it improves moods, you would talk about, how it improved moods, and you'd cite this article. And then under how it improves movement, you would use that under the exercise point, the physical, how video games can help us physically. And when you want to talk about how it improves social, how it helps us socially, then you would cite this article and how it connected them with out-of-town family and employees and friends across the nursing home. And so you have a lot of options here. So my favorites would be option 2 or option 3. Option 3 is the most difficult to do because most kids struggle with how to summarize without plagiarizing. It's very difficult because you don't want to use the same words and just rearrange the order, because that would be plagiarism. And you don't ever want to pass off something like that as your own. But like anything in life, you get better by practice, by doing it. And so I do think you should at least try. So hopefully this is a help to you as you're writing your paper, how to use information under your points. You are well on your way. And so I look forward to seeing the papers from my students. And I'm sure those of you who are turning this into your parents or another teacher, I'm sure they're looking forward to it as well.